The defense force is on the shore of an island, watching a battle unfold. It would be better if they just let the hunters on the island handle the fighting. Meanwhile, we see a man on that island sprinting through the forest's underbrush while being pursued by some kind of monster. This was all part of his plan because he was only leading his party so they could leap it. But as the group prepares to leap whatever emerges from that woodland, they encounter an army of ants and are forced to engage in one-on-one combat. Sadly, these guys' lack of competence is evident. One ant ends up killing the swordsman, and the mage squad's flame spells do absolutely no harm at all. They came prepared to jump the ants, but they got their asses in a knot and jumped instead, leaving the last man standing with no desire to fight. The team's leader is sprawled out on the ground, dying slowly, and he alone is responsible for the team's defeat. However, a new hunter who obviously knows what he is doing knocks off the ant on top of him before he can lose consciousness and turn into ant food. And dying, this expert hunter doesn't waste any time in giving the entire squad a revive. By doing so, he exposes his back to the ants' attack. But he wasn't alone. His teammates used the lightning strike to save him. Shortly joins in an assistance. Another one of his friends, Yu-Ho, busy using nothing but his fists to subdue the ants. There aren't many S-ranked hunters like these, and the difference between them and the typical schmuck is so great that nobody can match their strength. After the two have eliminated the majority of the ants, they inform Byung-gu, the healer, that he moved too far ahead of them and that it is too dangerous for him to be handling such a scenario. He's sorry, but he had to dash out to help these folks before it got too late, and furthermore, he can trust them to keep him safe. As he attended to their healing, not too long after, a massive white ant emerges, albeit it doesn't seem to be the boss. It is probably the beast's leader here. Therefore, he instructs Boonsak to fight beside him in order to defeat this monster, leaving the injured people in the care of Byung-ji. When Yuo is attacked by the ant first, he holds it in place until Boonsak attacks it with a lightning blow from above. They both charge forward and prepare their weapons for battle. Yuo seizes the chance to rip off the ant's mandibles while it is still stunned by the shock, which infuriates the ant and makes it kick him away. He wasn't finished, though, because he launched those identical mandibles through the ant's belly like projectiles, killing it with a single strike. They are not finished, though, as several more of those ants appear from the forest, and Yuo is growing agitated over the fight. He charges up and emits purple energy, and Boonsak follows suit, unleashing a barrage of lightning strikes in quick succession on the approaching throng. On the other side of the city, however, another S-ranked hunter is in charge of a group of supporting characters, trying to halt the ant colony's progress. Choi launches a tremendous fire blast that instantly roasts all the tiny ants, but the larger ones survive. The average schmuck signals that everyone is ready. It is now up to the cannon fodder to fight to keep them at bay. When a portal connecting our world to numerous others opened more than 10 years ago, a variety of magical beasts and monsters started to invade. They quickly came to the conclusion that their weapons were useless and that they would have been at the invaders' mercy. These individuals were known as hunters, and Hyun has started to awaken exceptional talents. They are ranked from this loser in E rank all the way down to a level where we see all the very amazing hunters. But once an ability is awakened, it cannot be developed further. After 3 years, we witness a man grabbing breakfast before entering a building site that has been transformed into a dungeon raid site. As he eats, one of his buddies comes out to him, and he is taken aback to see him there after learning that Park has stopped being a hunter. But once his wife became pregnant a second time, the economics turned against him. As a result, he has to make a lot of money quickly, and a dungeon raid would be ideal for that. They keep catching up, and we see Jinwoo, the same loser who was at the bottom of the rankings, the man himself. As he cautiously greets each person as he arrives, Park wonders why it looks like everyone knows who he is, speculating that he could be a superhuman hunter, but in reality, it's the complete opposite. It is believed that Jinwoo is the weakest hunter in history. He even succeeded in hurting himself, and ending up in the hospital in an E-rank dungeon so much so that they might as well make an F rank specifically for him. Therefore, since his well-known weakness has turned into something of a lucky charm every time he is sent for a dungeon raid, it's most likely going to be an extremely simple one. Since Jinwoo is actually so weak, it's not like they are incorrect. He heard what they just said about him. A woman named Judy calls him out. It appears that Jinwoo knows her from a prior task they completed together. Despite their pleasantries, she is more concerned about his most recent injuries, and asks him what may have gone wrong this time. Jinwoo tells them the embarrassing story of how he was hurt in the dungeon with the lowest ranking as they sat down, because they believed it would be far too simple for any self-respecting hunter to ever sustain an injury. Dungeons and the group decided not to have a healer on hand. However, they had forgotten about Jinwoo. Jui becomes enraged on his behalf, but Jinwoo is well aware that his own weakness was the root of the problem, not theirs. As the moment has come for them to enter the dungeon, and they are all set to go inside, Songki offers to lead the group on this adventurous journey. Since nobody is against the idea, he leads them all in. Before Jinwoo goes inside, he receives a kind admonition to stay as close to the group as possible to avoid getting injured again. Jinwoo can only purchase equipment with his meager earnings from his meter, and his sole weapon is a small dagger with minimal magical power. Despite this, he pledges to give it his all. Somewhere, a firm president is conversing with his assistant. The public's demands are as conflicting as they have always been. They want the stuff that are obtained from the dungeons in addition to demanding that he figure out a means to stop the dungeon breaks. The crystals taken from the bodies of magic animals can be sold for money, but the process of gathering them is extremely bloody. So it's not like he is in a position to complain about their requests given that he makes his money from selling goods taken from the dungeon. Fortunately, Jinwoo has successfully obtained one for himself for the first time, but in his joy over the money he would receive from selling this jewel, he leaves himself vulnerable, and Jui's call alerting him to an impending attack forces him to face reality. Though Jinwoo is able to raise his knife in time to block the goblin's blow, the knife breaks in the process. He just about avoids the goblin's next blows, but when he tries to protect himself with his knife once more, the cheap object breaks and he gets stabbed in the stomach. Jui offers to go assist him, but Park orders him to wait while he takes care of it. Despite not having been on a mission in a while, Park still has it in him as he kills the goblin with a single blow. Park instructs him to rest while he takes care of the next magical beast in his place. While they still have time, he asks Jui to heal Jinwoo, so she approaches him and starts the procedure. A glow appears around her hands, and Jinwoo appears to be making a tiny recovery as she places her palm over the pouring wound and begins to heal him. Jinwoo, who has promised himself he would perform properly this time, is probably feeling like shit because he can see the other hunters on the other side of the cave genuinely doing their jobs. President Go has recently acquired a new government mandate to use monocrystals as a new means of producing energy. It is therefore the perfect energy source. Therefore, hunters are even more important to society as a whole as the government is investigating ways to harness magic jewels, monocrystals to generate electricity. In the interim, Jingu is recovering in the corner since he was the only person who was actually harmed in the dungeon, while the others have just defeated a werewolf and are celebrating their win. Jingu used to be on his side, but now that she's witnessed how seriously he continues getting hurt in fights, she's beginning to wonder how he managed to become a hunter in the first place. He's eventually going to have injuries too serious for her to handle if this continues. He offers an apology, but Jingu doesn't seem to be interested. Rather, she desires that he proceed with greater caution going forward. Jinwoo turns to face the other hunters, who are dividing up the spoils based on how well each hunter performed during the fight. When it comes to team contributions, Jinwoo contributed almost little over the entire battle. He therefore spent his whole savings on a broken knife and a single E-rank magic gem, which is all he has to show for this entire endeavor. He is beginning to think twice about coming out here and risking his life for no money. But then one of the team members points out a massive hole, and everyone gathers to discover what this is. Although it appears to be a cave, the fact that they are in a dungeon increases the likelihood that it is actually a double dungeon. Although it's uncommon, they've heard of it before, and the fact that they've already defeated the dungeon monster confirms their suspicions. However, unlike a typical dungeon, this one is yet to close. Although it appears that there will be more money to be made farther into the dungeon, Song Kai tries to be the voice of reason, informing everyone that standard procedure is to notify the association of the double dungeon and abide by their subsequent orders. The crew is opposed to doing that since doing so would essentially entail giving up ownership of all the unclaimed treasure that is likely waiting for them down there. Park then says the words that never really work out well. It's only a dungeon with the F rating. What could go wrong? He then talks about how he has to earn more money so he can return to his wife and child. He does grasp the message they are attempting to express. The team members all voice their opinions, ranging from agreement with the idea to delve more, not realizing that this is an obvious death. Jinwoo is the only person remaining who hasn't cast a ballot. There are a total of 6 votes, There are a total of 6 votes in favor of entering the cave and 6 votes against returning home. Therefore someone has to break the tie. Jinwoo is the only person who hasn't cast a ballot. He is left to make the decision, and even though he knows full well that being in a D-rated dungeon with his father missing is extremely risky, he is the only member of his family who can make a living, and he already has a lot of financial obligations. He can't stay broke forever because his sister still needs to go to college and his mother is in the hospital. He decides to enter the dungeon, and then we see a lab where individuals are being examined for magical abilities. Additionally, associations are waiting outside in the waiting area, prepared to sign up any enthusiastic new hunters. And Choice, this rank hunter, believes that if a talented person is available for recruit, it is important to hire them, regardless of their age or gender. The group has been exploring the dungeon for 40 minutes now, but they haven't found anything worthwhile. And the entrance to the dungeon closes an hour after the boss has been vanquished. This implies that they will run out of time entirely in about 20 more minutes. Juhi isn't even upset that she had to come down here. Jinwoo apologizes for coming down here even though he knew she wanted to go back. She is upset that, despite suffering severe injuries earlier, Jinwoo continued to act like such a thoughtless fool with his body by choosing to descend into such a hazardous, uncharted dungeon. He considers it carefully now that he knows the goblin stab may have been his last, had she not been there to save him. Juhi calms down a little when she realizes that Jinwoo is finally paying attention to her safety. Worries, she wants to make up for it by having dinner with Jinwoo after this, which flusters Jinwoo. However, before he can respond, the group enters the boss room. Though they are unsure of their duties here, they discover some writing on the walls. Song-ki is reading it to Juhi, who becomes alarmed. Because she thinks the statue's eyes may have moved, the room's doors abruptly close, and a team member who hadn't intended to enter realizes something is amiss and tries to flee, only to have his escape thwarted when one of the guard sculptures chops him in half. Not only did someone just die, but he was also defeated in an instant with a power that none of them could have handled, which makes everyone stress out. Jinwoo turns to face the main statue in the hopes that it won't move too much, but he looks back at him horribly. Jinwoo shouts for everyone to come down before it's too late. Since he has had enough near-death experiences to know that this is one of them, Jinwoo and Chui narrowly avoided the death ray unleashed by the enormous statue. But many others aren't as fortunate and suffer burns instead. Nevertheless, Jinwoo is certain that he would be killed eventually, even if he was fortunate this time. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click on the videos on the screen for more contents like this, and don't forget to subscribe. Arigatou.